So, I wanted to talk about how it can feel to have a fat suit. And it's something I really dealt with this past year, the idea of having a fat suit. And I want to first say that Rachel Naomi Remen, in her book "And My Grandfather's Blessing," which I absolutely adore and recommend, says the common ways to deal with suffering is denial, rationalization, and hiding, or spiritualization or substitution, or disconnecting ourselves from our very life that needs our blessing. And I know I went to a 12-step meeting with a group from Romumu, which is a Reconstructionist synagogue community organization in Manhattan, New York. And we talked about fears, and I remember thinking, like, and I journaled about it, that I felt like my fears being like, I'm average, I won't ever do great things or live an extraordinary life, or that I lack the essential spice to make life feel meaningful, to be worthy of existence, to feel prepared for the future, that all my choices didn't pay and my investments were poor, and that a simple, humble, private, modest life will be I'm afraid that whether a simple, humble, private life, a modest life will be enough, and everything else is more bother than it's worth, or that I won't be enough, or it won't be enough, and that I have a fear that it won't be enough to have a life like that I don't have what it takes to be successful, or to have my values be satisfied, that I'll always be and feel like a victim, and that the friendships, relationships, jobs, travels, education, hobbies that I are in my past didn't grow me, were all waste. And also I learned about in this 12-step meeting was that, submission versus power. So compromise is a relationship. There's this going back and forth between safety and danger, help and harm, and outside and inside, stinginess and sharing, rules and reward versus punishment. Rules and then reward and punishment versus presence, consciousness, awareness, transcendence, the family versus the stranger, in other words, like familiar versus different, foreign, origins and trajectories, like where we're coming, where we're going, grief over loss, transformed by feeling the failures and disappointment. So grief over loss is feeling an empty, or like feeling the pain over losing, versus transformed by feeling the failure and disappointment, which is like something happened and then caused pain. Paranoia versus trusting a higher power. Fear of groups because of only being able to control one person at a time, and resources versus wasting, useful versus and feeling worthy, unworthy. And I want to and when we clear from fear and the submission versus power struggle, I was thinking about clarity, and I looked up this over 60 meanings in the Random House Dictionary, but of the English language. Many have to do with freedom, but I want to say a few, which is free from obstruction, free from guilt, free from blame, confusion, entanglement, limitation, debt, impurity, suspicion, illusion, doubt, uncertainty, and ambiguity, which, in other words, allows us to be perfectly serving the passage of light. And what's interesting is that Rabbi Asher Chris, when we talk about serving the passage of light, when we're serving Hashem, which has very much to do with the commandments of God's will, and God here being the oneness, the love, the goodness. So there's 248 positive commandments, things to do that bring light, basically that allow the passage of light. So it's interesting, 248 is related to the word rechem, which means womb in Hebrew. That's the numerical value, because each letter in Hebrew is not just a letter, it's also a number. And this is a self-decentering. It makes a space for others. And everyone has this in common. We're thinking women, right? And if you actually look at the 248, you also see that it's the numerical value of B'Tselem Elohim, which is the image of God, or the image of the divine, the image of the highest, the image of the force, and also Abraham, who represents kindness, compassion, which is the word for that in Hebrew is rachamim. And also in Ezekiel verse 24 of chapter 33, it says Abraham was one. So there's 248 bones and organs, the limbs of the body, which means Avar. Avar is integrated, organizing the differentiation. So we see the oneness comes into all these different parts. Doesn't mean that it's not unified. It's like this, the positive commandments, which positive means to put, to place, to lay down. You put something in. These are modular, traceable, bordered commandments that fill something in. They fill with light. So it's like a womb that fills up with new life, right? And it fills with compassion. It fills with the oneness, and everything that comes off of it comes out from that core oneness. And as we come to recognize the core, the origin of of feeling loved is usually when we feel grateful. So I decided to do a practice of a gratitude list. So, that I never had a shelter history of homelessness, that I could always get food and clothes, that I could read and speak well and do math and make art and clean and cook, and had a good education, learned how to think and problem solve and analyze, and that I live in the Jewish community of Crown Heights, where there's many resources for me, including access to 770. I feel there's a lot of programs in Crown Heights. There could be resources that help me feel enlightened and warm. And even though I had a family that abandoned me, I have enough skills and likability to make other supports and connections and receive some loyalties, even if it's only temporary. And now I'm going to come to the topic of the Fatsuit, which is, one second, I have to stretch.